This is Mark Belvin, SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West. I'm pulling up to the scene with my roof gone. We got a question from Trent Fontenot. I think that's how you say his name. He has a question about the bench press. This message is brought to you by HowMuchYouBench.net and the only strength magazine in the world, ThePowerMagazine.com. The question here today is about tightness. He knows how to get tight, feels he does a good job on the squat, and he does a good job with deadlifts of getting himself tight. He's got the right sensations down for that. This is something I've talked about before. I feel like many lifters can develop the proper sensations that they need to excel and to do better at least one or two of the lifts, but oftentimes they have trouble with all three. I myself am guilty of that in the case of the deadlift. I kind of don't have the right sensation, the right feel. Some people know the exact feel, the exact positioning of their hands and their feet, all the way from their toes to their nose. They know everything, where everything should be on specific lifts. Ed Cohn was a great example of that. And some people just really have a hard time mastering at least one lift due to our body structure. Everyone's built differently and makes it challenging. If you're a great deadlifter, you got long arms, and you got long arms for the bench press as well. So it just makes things more difficult, and sometimes makes getting the proper sensations down difficult due to all our different body types and structures and so forth. Anyway, your question here, you said that you'd like to do 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 repetitions in your bench press workouts. So a couple things that come to mind here with tightness on the bench press. You're mentioning that you're squeezing the bar and so on. Let's rewind it. Let's back it up a little bit here, and let's just talk about the bench press in general. Some of the things we're looking to do. We're looking to shorten the range of motion. We're looking to take our shoulder from being like this to being back in here. We're not trying to pull it upward like this. We're trying to pull it down in here. We're trying to squeeze the barbell as hard as we can. You always want to squeeze that barbell. And on the way down in the bench press, you're trying to slightly tuck your elbows in, basically trying to kind of bend the bar. So you're going to squeeze the bar, and you're going to kind of bend it inward a little bit. We don't want too much. We don't want you to do the gay pterodactyl, and we don't want gay wrist. So squeeze the bar hard, and don't rotate inward too much with your elbow. That'll leave you in a crappy position at the bottom of the bench press. Then from there, what you want to do is you want to try to press the weights out hard by driving your body into the bench press and doing that kind of front bodybuilder pose that we all do first thing in the morning before we leave the house. So you want to try to flex out through here. You're trying to flex your lat and push it against your tricep. Hopefully your lats are jacked enough to do that move. If they're not, then you better start hitting up some lat work, my friend. And some tricep work, because that cushion back there is going to help you press big weights out. Another thing here is as you go to push the weights back up, you're trying to spread the bar apart. So there'll be a natural flare to your elbow, and your elbow will come in line with your wrist and in line with the barbell, and then you'll lock it out. Many people struggle with the lockout because they have their wrist back like this. Make sure that wrist is tilted forward a little bit. Make sure you're squeezing that barbell hard and that the weights are resting in your actual hand and not in your fingers. Okay, so we got some of that out of the way. How do you stay stable on the bench press? He says that he can sometimes feel a little bit more stable when he does singles. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Do singles for a while. Work on doing singles for a while. Work on pushing those weights up a little heavier. Get to about 80 to 90% and do multiple sets of singles. That'll help a lot. Also, my product, the Slingshot, would be a great benefit to you because it's going to allow you to overload, handle more weight, and if you use it for repetitions, it's just going to help a ton with stability. Obviously, you're gonna handle a lot more weight when you're utilizing the Slingshot as opposed to not using the Slingshot. But I would suggest to you that you get the reactive Slingshot, which is the most passive one. It's not going to allow you to lift a ton over your max, probably about 50 pounds or so, maybe 40 pounds, somewhere in that range. The Slingshot also kind of teaches that form, driving the elbows in, driving them back out as you're locking out. But Another thing I'd suggest that you do is some kettlebell overhead work would be good. And when you do your kettlebell presses, make sure that you're kind of turning them outward. But not only that, make sure you hold it at the top because the kettlebell wants to swing back down. So that'll kind of help with some shoulder stability. And it'll also just help with just building up your shoulders so you can press hard at the bottom so you're a little bit more stable. But in addition to that, I'd like you to get some kettlebells, some dumbbells, some plates, whatever you can get your hands on. Kettlebells would be optimal. Hook them to some mini bands. You kind of quad up the mini band and you hook it around the barbell. And now you have an unstable pressing environment, and that'll help teach you to stay tight as well. Every time you go to push into it real hard, the weights get herky-jerky, and then you got to try to lock them out. So that would be a great exercise for you to do. And that is done normally for high repetitions somewhere in the range of 12 to 25 or so is what I'd suggest to you. Also, on your regular bench presses, make sure you're doing some pause work. Some pauses can really help teach you to stay tight. It can teach you how to bench press. It can teach you a lot about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Because I would guess, if I was to say, just by what you're saying here, I think there's a problem with the descent of your bench press. Your bench press is probably pretty decent, but there's a problem with your descent. Bad joke, I know. But what I'm guessing is happening is you're coming down kind of like this, and as you get to here, you're going whoosh. You're kind of anticipating the press, and you're pressing it out too early. So make sure you pause for about a 2 count down there. It's going to negate a lot of the weight, a lot of the strength that you have. But in the long run, you're going to be a lot stronger for it. So work on that. Work on some pauses. Get rid of your reps for a little bit. Just do the singles until you start to feel a little bit more comfortable, until you start to feel a little bit like you're handling a little bit more weight. Also, dumbbell presses, incline and flat, can be extremely beneficial. One arm at a time can be very beneficial. What I would suggest, though, with one arm at a time is to hold another dumbbell in the other hand. It could be like any size dumbbell. You could have 100 on one side and 40 on the other, but just hold something on the other side so you don't feel like you're going to fall off the bench. Those would be of great benefit to you. So switch into doing some singles. I don't usually say that to people, but in this case, it sounds like you have the right sensations with your singles, and so I'd like you to feel those sensations more often rather than less often, and I'd like you to have a little bit better understanding of how things are supposed to feel. And that is it from SuperTraining.tv. Later.